Champions Mojo is part of the CG Sports Network.
Welcome to Champions Mojo, a podcast to bring out your inner champion. Your hosts are sisters-in-law Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker. Kelly is a former Division I head swim coach, Olympic trials qualifier, and holds national and world records in masters swimming. Maria holds world records in endurance cycling and won the world's toughest bike race, Race Across America. Both are certified health and life coaches. Our goal is to inspire you through conversations with champions. And now, your host, Kelly Pallas.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast. And as usual, I'm co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Kelly. Good to be here today.
Yes. Before we get started, Maria, we want to welcome our guest, Lael Wilcox, to the show.
Welcome, Lael.
Thanks for having me here.
Yes, Lael. Well, Maria and I are just so excited. What a treat for our listeners today. We have a guest who is a well-known name in the cycling community, in the ultra cycling world, for her amazing performances. Again, that's Lael Wilcox, world record holder, world champion. And just to tell you a little bit, in 2016, Lael was the first woman and the first American to win the 4,200-mile Trans Am bicycle race. The Trans Am bike race is an annual self-supported cycling race across the U.S. Lael holds the women's record also for the Tour Divide, a 2,745-mile bike race from Canada to Mexico. So, Maria, tell us some more about this amazing cyclist.
Well, so just first to clarify, that Tour Divide is an off-road race. She's done both road and off-road races, and I suspect that you love off-road, but we'll get to that later. I also want to say that Lael did the 1,546-mile Baja Divide route, and has, as of in 2017, she set the fastest known time from San Diego to San Jose Del Cabo. She's also known for taking on the toughest self-supported challenges on the planet. We're blown away when we watch the film I'm Not Stopping, which follows her on the Navad 1,000, a 670-mile race with 100,000 feet of climbing, where she became only the second woman to even finish it. These extreme tests of endurance and self-reliance and mental toughness just keep coming. In October of 2019, Lael placed second overall in the Silk Road Mountain Race, a 1,061-mile self-supported mountain bike race in Kyrgyzstan. Lael, you've done so much, even more than what we've mentioned, but let's just jump in. Welcome to Champions Mojo.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the kind intro.
Well, it's all true.
I feel just so grateful to do what I love. I mean, like, even you bringing up these different races from the past, I'm like, wow, I got to ride in those places, and then I got to compete, and then so much happens along the way. So just fun to think about, even fun to talk about.
Is gratitude a big part of your life?
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, I started this long distance bike riding right after I finished college in 2008. And then I worked half the year in pizza places and restaurants and bike shops to pay for it. And now I just get to do it full time, as a sponsored athlete. And every day I'm just blown away that that's even possible.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but you certainly have the talent to get those kinds of sponsorships. And, as I have been watching your videos and the different interviews, as we've already learned from you, gratitude seems to be a big part of it. But, this is kind of a good segue into my first question. Is like, I mean, obviously you're an athletic person. You could, be doing a lot of things. What is it particularly about mountain bike racing or bike packing, I guess, better, that you love, that keeps you coming back for more and more and more and more and more?
I know. I mean, I'm actually surprised that I got into this sport, that I continue doing it, because I really, at first, I started because I wanted to travel and I wanted to go different places, and I wanted to do that, self-supported. And the bike was such a great vehicle for that, because you can carry stuff. It's not that hard on the body. You could go on, paved roads, you can go on dirt. Really, it's like the world is wide open to possibilities. So I started doing that. And at first I was like, I don't really like the bike. I'd rather be on foot, but long distance hiking or running, it just takes forever. So I stuck with the bike. And then I didn't start competing until like 7 years into traveling. And I just never saw it as like an athletic thing to do. I was like, oh, bikes are like just a vehicle and just a way to get places. And then I entered my first race was supported, and it was a race across America qualifier. It's called the Fireweed 400 in Alaska. And it's just an out and back, 2 roads. You go from Sheep Mountain Lodge to Valdez, turn around and go back. And I was like, well, I didn't even know if I could finish it. The cutoff time was like 32 hours. I borrowed my mom's road bike and I was like, let's just do it. My best friend was my vehicle support, and I was like, well, maybe I'll get halfway and then we'll just call it good. And then I didn't, I felt like fine out there. I actually like picked up the pace as I was going along. And then that's when I realized, wow, this is something I could actually do. Cause you really don't know until you do it. You're like, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's go 100 miles, 200 miles, 400 miles, 3,000 miles. I mean, it doesn't change that much. You're tired, but you just keep moving.
But with the racing, you're also adding extra hardship because you're not sleeping as much. You're
right.
I saw that you eat on the bike, and you sleep on the ground, for 3 hours at a time. So, bike packing is one thing, and I think there's a lot of attraction for a lot of us on that. But going from bike packing to bike pack racing, where you're really pushing yourself, what special traits do you have that make you successful at that?
I mean, I think, you do whatever your body can you find your own limits. Everybody does. But then I'm like, well, maybe part of it is that day after day, I'm still so excited to be out there. It's like I wake up after 3 hours of sleep and yeah, of course, every part of my body hurts. But then I'm still like, oh, I get to keep going. I'm still in this race, like, what can I do to save time? Like, how fast can I pack up? How fast can I keep moving? And then, yeah, of course, not every hour is great. But then, even through the hard hours, it's like it gets better. And then it's fun again. And then I see a beautiful sunset, or I see wild animals, or I have like a funny interaction with a person, or, I actually start feeling physically good. And it's like all these little gains are part of what keeps me going. And then at the end, it's like, I'm also just super competitive. It's like, I want to win. Can I? And then it's like, is it possible? It's like, yeah. And I mean, part of that too is like, I'm a woman doing this.
Right.
And then I could win the overall race. And they like, when I get to a start line and I'm like stacked up against these like huge dudes, then I like actually look over and I'm like, actually, I might beat that guy. And that's like, it's so rare that women get a chance to actually compete against a full field and win.
Yeah, like doing that and the Trans Am was just like, it made huge news in the ultra cycling world. Just so amazing. You were first, not the first woman, the first person.
And I didn't think that I really wanted to win, but I didn't have a lot of experience road riding. I get into that race, took me 18 days, 10 minutes, averaged 237 miles a day. And, into day 5, I was like, oh man, I'm terrible at this. And like, I'm not winning. I was like 5th place. And I was like, but I really want to win. So I just kept going for it, like doing everything I could. But I was like, you start just telling yourself, well, I'm just not fast enough. I'm just not like good enough at this. But then like, all you can do is just try your best and see what happens. And then over 18 days, things change. People have different reactions. Like, how do you stick with it in that sleep deprived state? Or it's like, especially self-supported, things happen like flat tires. I broke a seat post. I had to like ride 50 miles to the next shop to get one. It's like, how do you respond?
With no seat? There was no seat, or the seat was just...
So I'm just like standing up.
Oh gosh. I would have trouble riding 50 miles in a perfect condition. So standing up. So besides just kind of connecting to this love of the sport and the gratitude and the nature that kind of keeps you going through this huge deprivation, what other traits, like when, you're lining up with a bunch of men, what other traits make Lael this champion that can go like this?
I mean, I think physically I recover pretty quickly. It's like day after day, like, yeah, you have the biggest struggle for me is my breathing. I just have a hard time breathing, but like my legs feel pretty good. I don't have knee problems. You know, it's like, I don't even wear a chamois, you know, from like bike shorts. Like, but you know, it's like, so I, you know, I feel pain, of course, but like, I think my body's just like pretty used to it. And, you know, you adapt. I guess the other thing too is like these kind of events, like, I don't know, I try to eat like 10,000 calories a day. Like if I was like a 200-pound man, I'd have to eat like double that. You can't even digest that much food,
Right,
you know?
right.
It's like
I never even thought about
impossible.
that being
Being a little
plus.
smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to some of these guys like lose a pound a day. They just can't keep up. You know,
So there's pain, you know, and then there's suffering. And to me, you know, what you do is, of course, there's discomfort and trying hard and breathing hard, but the suffering that comes with being wet and being cold and, you know, being muddy or whatever, to me, the coldness would be like, you know, what is it about you and how can the rest of us acquire this ability to just suffer like that and get through? And why would you do it?
I mean, a lot of it is like equipment too, though. You know, you carry everything you need. So then like for the Tour Divide last year and for the Silk Road Mountain Race in Kyrgyzstan, I was wearing down pants.
Nice.
You know, and I would ride in them. Like I'm like descending in these down pants, like that's going to keep you warm. It's like, you know, maybe and especially if like with endurance, your body temperature just runs colder and you're like with less sleep, you're like, your body cools down faster. And then if I get too cold, I lose all my energy. So then I'm like, well, let's just run a little hot. Let's wear more clothes, you know, anything to like kind of stay in that happy place. But yeah, I mean, there are like stretches where it's like my hands are cold for like 5 hours. And then you just try not to obsess, like just
so
only think about your hands. Yeah. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll listen to an audiobook and not think about my hands. I don't know. Yeah. Some of it, like I start like, I used to never like listen to music or listen to podcasts or stories. And now I do whenever I feel like it. And it's like fun. I get involved in a story, but I guess that's kind of disassociation, like thinking about something else while I'm physically experiencing pain, suffering.
Yeah.
You know,
you don't seem like you quit much. Like, I mean,
I hate
you know, the
quitting.
video shows you, you know, whatever, just going through incredible stuff, like carrying your bike through, you know, freezing cold streams when it's up to your waist or whatever. I mean,
I know,
do you ever go like, what am I doing?
Well, what else would you do though in that situation? You're like, there's nobody else there. What am I just gonna like sit on the riverbank and like pout? Like, oh, you know, like I wish I wasn't here. And then I'm still gonna be there like 2 hours later, just sitting there.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it helps that it's self-supported because you can't, it's hard to quit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It is.
Because like if you quit, you still got to get to a town, right?
Exactly. There's no easy exit when you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that is just crazy. So when I saw something that I just thought was amazing in one of your, you know, Maria and I do a lot of research on our guests. And at one point your hands were so cold, you couldn't turn a faucet or change your tire or anything. What do you do with that? Like,
oh man, that's bad. Yeah. You know, I think I like opened the faucet with my elbow and then just ran my hands under it for 5 minutes, but that hurts too.
Yeah.
But you know, I think though, like after these experiences, like the next time around, it's not as bad. I think that's with everything. You kind of get used to it, or you just mentally don't care as much. You're like, whatever, I've been here. It's not like going to destroy me.
Yeah, we would love to hear like some of your inner voice, your mindset. Like, do you have some mantras or things that you generally say? Like, you know, what would you be saying to yourself in these tough situations? Yeah,
I mean, I think a few, because there's always a lot of, I used to feel a lot more self-doubt, like, oh, I'm just not good enough. Oh, you know, this is because things are going wrong and you're like, your body's not reacting well. And you're like, you know, you could go down this negative tunnel. And then I've kind of come to the point where I just ask myself if I'm doing the best that I can, given the situation. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not riding as fast as I wish I was, but am I actually giving it my best effort right now? And if the answer is yes, then that's it. you can't do anymore, and then feeling bad about it, it's not going to make it better. It's not going to make me ride better. If I'm happy, I'll ride better. And I know that. So then I'm like, okay, I'm doing my best, move on, that's good. And then in the pains, like hours, like where I just feel horrible, I just remind myself that it's not going to last forever, because that's the crazy thing is like, you feel so much pain. And then an hour later, or I'll say, oh, I'll check in an hour and look at the time, and then look at the time again in an hour. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's way better now. Like your body just changes, like crazy knee pain, like it's just grinding. And then I had that in the Trans Am where it was like crazy knee pain for a week. And then after a week it went away. And I was like, great. I'm so happy, because it would just like hurt so much. But then, the pain goes away. I just can't believe like the body does that though. Like that you can put yourself through this kind of stuff and then recover 2 weeks later. And you're like, okay, I'm going for a run. It's like, it's amazing what people physically can do. And, I don't feel like I'm hitting my potential, like overall. I feel like there's always more you could do, but I'm like, the more you do it, the more normal it becomes.
Do you see the same people in all of your ultra endurance bikepacking races? Are they the same 30 or 50 or 100?
There's a broader spread because there are different disciplines. So there's like road racing, gravel riding, technical mountain biking, like biking in snow. Like some of the people are interested in all of them. So they just do all the different things. And then of course you find like what you're actually best at. But for me, it's like, I want to try all the different disciplines because I'm like, well, what's going to happen out there? And that's also part of what keeps it fun is like, you're in a totally different environment. Like, and that was part of why I raced the Trans Am. I was more of like a off-road dirt rider, but I was like, well, it's on the road. I told myself it was going to be easy. I was like, oh, it's road riding. How hard could that be?
How hard could it be?
Oh my God, it's so hard. I'm like, this is too hard, and it's more of the same position and like being like putting out power on flat terrain. I was like, this is terrible. It's so hard versus like, if there's a hill in front of you, you just go up it. You don't really have to think about like what effort you're putting in. It's like, it's all you can do to like get up there. But flat terrain, that's like a totally different beast. Like all of Kansas, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to make it? Hundreds of miles of flat, straight roads into headwinds. It's just, but yeah, I like them all. And then you see the people that are like, actually really love it because they'll keep doing it for like 10 years. Other people, they'll like give it a try for a year or two and then, move on. Because it's just, you really have to love it to keep doing it. It's just too hard.
What's your favorite right now?
What's that favorite race?
What's your favorite kind of racing right now?
Dirt
as
road.
Of today.
Yeah, dirt road with tons of climbing.
Yeah.
That's it.
I saw you describe. When I see the little squigglies, I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Lael, we've talked a lot about just like the suffering that comes with being on a bike and the pain and the deprivation. But what about, can you tell us any stories, or do you have a couple of your most like risky, scary, dangerous? Because, if all goes well, hopefully it's not dangerous or risky or scary, but
right.
What has been, because you're out there alone, what's been your scariest, dangerous, most crazy situation?
Oh man, that's a great question. I mean, during the Silk Road Mountain Race, there were like several stream crossings, river crossings. I even brought like a little pair of sandals because I knew I was going to have to cross so much water, and it was cold. Like the nights would be, in the 20s. And I was like, okay, my feet are just going to be way too cold if I don't put different shoes on. And then actually coming up on the last day, it took me 7 days to finish, but the last day was like the deepest stream crossing, and it always depends on how much water there's been. And I'd scouted most of the route before, but I hadn't been on this stretch, and I was like, well, the track continues on the other side. And so I was like, I guess I have to cross it. I'm carrying my bike, crossing the stream, and I'm like starting to go down. And then there was a horseman there, like a nomadic horseman that like grabbed me. like as I was going down, he like grabbed me and like helped me get across to the other side. And I was like, holy cow, like I could have just gone down. And then, then what happens? And then he just happened to be there. There was like nobody out there. There are a few yurts and like occasionally you see like horseback riders. And then this guy just happened to be there and grabbed me right as I was going. It was like, oh,
how about like mountain lions or stalkers or border agents?
Let's jump into Kelly's nightmares here.
Yeah, I'm literally like thinking, gosh, if I'm on that bike and I'm going across the things that you've done by myself, I'm thinking these things.
Yeah, I know. But then it's like the chance that that's going to like cause you problems is so slim compared to like getting hit by a car. Yeah. But I did actually for the first time. So I'm from Alaska. I did this project where I rode all the major roads in Alaska. I was like, I just want to trace every line with my bike. And then I went back this summer to document it. We're going to make a video coming out by the end of the year. But I was riding out of Nome, really remote spot, and actually riding this little road that I had missed the first time around by myself. And I see this like golden grizzly bear. And I see like bears out, like it's Alaska. There are so many bears. Right. It's just part of it. And usually like, I yell and get big and they run away. And then this one, it was just like looking at me and I was just like, oh, it's on the side of the road. I can probably just go past it. And then it started like actually coming towards me and like, just like stalking towards me and then like getting closer. And then I like turned around and just started sprinting the other direction. That's never happened to me before though. A bear's never like actually kind of come at me. And then it's like, I see it like running behind me.
Gosh, they can run fast.
Interest. It must have lost interest because I just kept going and then I'd like eagerly like look over my shoulder. And then at some point it had stopped. But because like if the bear wanted to get me, it would have, like they're so much faster than me, even on a bike.
Right.
But I guess,
they run like 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, totally. And then my heart's just going, and then I'm like, I'm alone. I rarely have that feeling, but I did. I was like, oh my God, I'm alone. What if it got me? And then what? And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm still alone. The bear's gone. So I guess I just better go the other direction, and then my mind is like, oh, well, I didn't get to see the end of that road. I like missed a mile of it, but I was like, this project I've been obsessively riding all of the roads. So then I'm like, I guess I missed a mile of that road. Oh, well, but then I'm like, even now I'm like, well, someday I'm gonna have to go back and ride it because I didn't get to do it.
A little obsession there. So we've talked about suffering, pain, and fear. Let's talk about I've heard you talk about it and I want to hear you do it again for our podcast, just the joys that you experience when you're doing this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, like a huge part of it is just how unexpected everything is. It's like I really like on any day, any road, any place could look different. The weather could be different. You're going to encounter different people. You're going to feel differently. And like, I love that because like, you look at a map and it's just lines, two-dimensional, and then you're like, what's it actually like to be there? And so I feel like that's something that really drives me. And then when I'm actually there, I just feel so like excited just to be in that moment. Sometimes like there are hardships along the way and it's like, well, I wish I could find somewhere to go inside. But usually I'm just like, what's going to happen next? And then, it's always things that I'd never imagine. It's just, being invited into people's homes, like in Kyrgyzstan, having horseback riders like pace alongside me and then constantly ask me if I could switch my bike for their horse and they could ride my bike. And how funny is that? And they're like speaking Russian and I don't understand Russian, but like you figure out ways to communicate. Or any of these trips, it's like, before I go there, I don't even know what language they speak or what their currency is or how the people feel. And then I guess over time after time, people are always kind and they're always curious. They're like, what are you doing here? And I don't know. I've never actually had like a negative experience with people anywhere in the world. And then before you go somewhere, people always say, oh, it's not safe there. You shouldn't go. And it's like, well, if I listened to that, then I'd miss out on so much. And then I like going and seeing that it is a good place, because then that's like evidence that like people are kind worldwide. I guess the thing is, it's like people can give you your opinions of what's safe or not safe, or what you're capable of doing, and then you can go prove otherwise. And I feel like that's such a gift too. Like being a woman in the sport, I've been told that so often. It's like, well, you can't do it. You're not going to make it through the first day. And I'm like, why would you tell me that?
Oh,
I would never say that to somebody.
I bet you love that now, though, don't you?
Oh yeah,
You're
I'm like
just
burned
watch
up.
me.
Yeah, we'll see. But then it's like the response to that too is like other people write to me and they're like, because you did this, it made me feel like I could do something. So I think that's also like a huge gift, is that people can relate to me. I'm like normal sized. I don't look like a superhero. And they're like, well, she's doing it, so maybe I could ride my bike 100 miles. And then they try it out and they like it or they don't like it, but they genuinely challenge themselves. And then I'm like over and over impressed with people actually want to take on challenges regardless of like the sacrifice, and that's cool. That's cool to see.
Well, that's a good segue into your charitable work with Grit. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I run a girls program, Girls Riding Into Tomorrow. I started in 2017 with a friend. We were actually riding in Mexico together, and then came up with this idea of running a girls mentorship program where we'd ride together for 6 weeks and then go on a final adventure ride from their school in East Anchorage out to a Forest Service cabin. So 60 miles over 3 days. And we work with girls that are from low income families and, don't get a lot of opportunities, aren't necessarily athletic. But I mean, they're 12 and 13 years old. So
perfect.
That's like an age where like you want to take on a challenge. You want to do something like as an individual, you're like less, under your parents' guidance all the time. Like you want to find out who you are. So I've been doing that. Yeah, I guess we couldn't run it this spring, but next spring will be our 4th season. And the girls from previous years come back as student mentors. Specialized has donated all the bikes, and they get to keep their bikes at the end of the program. Then they're like, they know all the trails at that point. They're riding together, and now I'm seeing them grow up. I think our first girls are now like 16, 17 years old, and they've like grown a foot. They're little adults, it's so cool. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a challenge for me. I'm really like not well organized, but then I have like big dreams where I'm like, oh, I want to do this. And then once you have like a big dream, you just figure out how to get to that point. Like, well, how are we going to do it? How am I going to find girls? How can I work with schools? And then people say stuff like, well, what about insurance? And then I'm just like, oh God, I feel like I'm going to throw up.
People love to throw up roadblocks. I think people love to throw up roadblocks, don't they?
But then if it's like a cool program, then people find the help with solutions, and then like, especially because it's focused on women and girls, like anybody I asked help with, they're like, oh, that sounds great. Can we do this? And then they figure out ways to make it happen. I'm like, oh, thank God that people, because without help, I couldn't do any of this stuff, I guess that's cool too, because it's like the opposite of being self-supported. It's like, I need help. Like I actually depend on like such a huge network of people to do this. And it's like such a severe contrast from like the racing I do, which is totally solo, so.
Yeah. So you think that this trait of being self-supported carries over into your life like that?
I do, because it's sometimes the easiest way to get stuff done. And so you can rely on yourself, and you're like, well, if it's just me, then here we are, this is all that's going to happen. But I guess when I'm like working with other people, that can be so motivating because it takes so much of the burden off. I'm like, well, somebody else will pick it up, and then they'll run with it. And then I'm motivated to come back to it because like we made some progress, I think I need both. And I think that kind of like balances out my years. Like I get to do both. And then I'm excited about the next one coming up.
Sure. So Lael, who has been someone that has inspired you, like maybe in the athletic field, or someone that's mentored or inspired you?
I've been asked this before, and I've never really been able to come up with like a great response, but I was listening to a podcast with Billie Jean King recently, and I was like, God, she's such a badass. Like she's so cool. And then I'm like so inspired. I'm like, she's amazing. Like she was like the number one athlete, and then doing all this organizing to like do things she believed in, and just working so hard in both directions. So recently I mean, that's so cool. And then she's still active, you know, and then I'm like, I'm organizing this women's bikepacking challenge, and I'm like, she should come. You know, I think of like all these women in different athletics, and I'm like, just put them on a bike, see if they want to sleep outside. You know, it's like, it's not that hard. They could do it and it'd be so cool. But I think there is like this kind of just such a camaraderie with women in sports, because we're so underrepresented, and we've like been with, you know, so many roadblocks, and then like things are getting better, but they're still just not there. So I think like, I think that's so cool that women actually are like, in general, trying to support each other, trying to inspire the next people, instead of like, oh, I want to keep all this information to myself. Like there's this like genuine drive to get it out there and to tell stories.
Yeah,
you Kelly know, and we've talked a lot about women supporting each other in sports. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yes, and I was just going to say, generally, we've started in the base of interviewing swimmers, so we're one of maybe, I would say, 30 swimming podcasts when we started. So we're now, you know, going into 2 years, but for even right now, after 2 years of swimming podcasting, Maria and I are the only female podcasters, which is just blows my mind. Like it's just like that in a lot of areas of a lot of sports. So in fact, we interviewed the first woman Olympic swimming coach out of all the years and years and years. And we've only had one.
That's really crazy.
Yeah. So it's just like seeing someone out there like you is just awesome. And, you know, Billie Jean King, she's definitely one of my idols. So what other traits do you see in champions? Like just in general?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I guess perseverance, and especially with like this kind of niche fringe kind of athletics and racing, it's like, you know, people write to me and they're like, oh, I just want some advice on how to get sponsored. And I kind of feel like, well, good luck. You know, it's like,
me too.
Gosh, it's like, even after I won the Trans Am, like I paid for it. I was supported with bikes from Specialized, which was super helpful. Like I was not like sponsored with any money. And I was like, oh my gosh, I outright won this race. I'm like the best in the world at what I do. And I'm still like working in a restaurant to pay for it. And that's like kind of demoralizing, because you're like, well, I can't really get any better. So what do I do? You know, and then like, well, if it was about the money, then I would have quit. But like, it wasn't, because I still was like, well, I still think this is important. And even if like people, you know, and then people like value you on like how much money you're making. I'm like, well, I'm not making any and I'm paying for it, but I still think it's important. And I still want to win these races. And it's like, well, you just have to believe in that what you're actually doing is important. And it's only going to matter the most to yourself. Like, it's not going to be like, who cares? Like what other people think about it. It's like, you know, I remember my own personal sacrifices, and like, that's why, and I was okay with them. And then I was okay like 2 years later that I did that, you know. It's like, I think that's part of it. It's like, nobody wins by accident. And like to get yourself to that point, it's like, you're, you know, kind of going to have to go through hell to do it. But then still thinking like, I will recover and it's worthwhile, you know, because you're not going to be at the top of your game from like the first, you know, your entrance into the sport. And if you were, then maybe that sport like isn't that exciting. The competition isn't good enough, you know. Or people that only look for like races that they can win. That's boring. You know, you should want people to like try to beat you. That's gonna push the sport in general. Like now, like more professional cyclists are doing these self-supported races, and I think that's so cool, because it's like we're actually going to see these records come down and down and see what happens, you know. And like I think we should get to that point.
Yeah, I love the way you talk about just that combination of your competitiveness, but still, I'm doing this because I love it. You're not doing it just to win. Clearly, you haven't won every race you've ever entered. And so, but I would like to ask a question about obstacles. I imagine, other than the physical obstacles that you've obviously overcome doing what you do with the racing, what's maybe one of your toughest, either physical or emotional obstacle that you've been through? And then how does your sport kind of, maybe what you learn from it, get you through it?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there have been a few during races. The first time I raced the Tour Divide, I had to ride myself to the emergency room. I had such severe problems with breathing. And every day for like the first 5 days, I thought I'd have to quit. I felt like I was breathing through a straw. I was wheezing. And also that's so scary because, like, first of all, I thought I might stop breathing. And then second, it's like, well, am I causing like long-term damage to my body? And is this worth it? I
experienced that on RAM as well. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's scary, and it's
you
also
think you might die.
terrifying.
It's those elevation changes, I think, partly.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and like the dry air, and it's terrible. But then I got better, and then I was so happy I didn't quit, because that was like my first really long race. And I mean, if I quit at that point, maybe that would have been it. I also dealt with 2 years ago, we were making a video about the Tour Divide, and I got kind of this negative feedback from the bikepacking community about documenting my race. And it was like people saying that my race wouldn't count if it was documented, because that's like influencing my ride. And then like just all this kind of blow up about, and then people saying that my past results don't count because everything I've done has been documented, which is not true. But the problem is, like, if you don't document events, then it's almost like they didn't happen. It's like, and it's so hard to share stories without photos or without videos. Like, you just don't reach people outside of this tiny sport.
Totally.
And part of what I do, I think the storytelling part is so important and so exciting, because it's like, then it's like, maybe like my grit girls watch it and and then it encourages them to do something. Like, just the splash you can make is just so much broader. Or people from like different countries, like everybody has access to the internet and social media and YouTube, and then they can be inspired like from wherever they are. But then to get this like kind of backlash, and to have people like questioning my legitimacy as an athlete and telling me that what I'm doing is wrong and doesn't count, and trying to disqualify me before I even start, it's like, what is this all about? Like, why? And then it's so odd, because all of the Tour Divide has like 5 videos about it already. Yeah. I'm like, well, what about them? Is theirs? And then everybody would say, oh no, theirs is different because of this reason or that reason. And ultimately I'm like, that doesn't really make sense.
What about that was particularly,
I mean, part of it was because my girlfriend was like, we had pitched this project. And so then they're like, well, if you see her, that's going to give you an emotional boost. So then we made it so we had 2 other shooters there. So they would shoot me and I would never see her. But even then, like, people said that wasn't enough. They're like, well, if she's in the general area. I mean, this is just getting so weird. So then they're like, okay, well, to reconcile, you could not use your cell phone, and then you can't call anybody along the way. And so I was like, okay, that's fine, but everybody else is allowed to use their phone. Like, why am I getting new rules? I was like, this doesn't even make sense. And then, this is all coming in like 2 days before the race. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to focus on being the best racer, and now I'm dealing with all this. Like, what is this, So ultimately I tried to like listen, because I think that's also where you come from as like a female athlete. You're like, well, we want to listen. We want to hear what people are saying. We want to give them like a voice, because we're so shut down. But then I realized I really shouldn't be listening to this stuff. This is crazy, So that was mentally really tough to deal with. Like, and also just to be like, I've worked so hard to get to where I'm at, and then to be criticized by my own community. And then you're like, oh, like, do I even like this community anymore? But I have to look back at it and be like, okay, it's not everybody. It's like, 10 grouchy guys.
Yeah,
They just have a big voice on Facebook, they just, because of social media, people can just blast criticism and like cause like these weird controversies, So.
Yeah, Kelly and I have both experienced that. And I've wondered if it's the competitiveness or if it's being a woman or what. I mean, because like you say, other men had their races documented. What about you?
Yeah.
What about you was, why were you under attack?
The craziest thing about this is there was another racer in the same year with a video crew, and we were leapfrogging positions in the race, and he had a van following him and nobody cared. I mean, and then it's well, why do they care about mine and not his?
So how do you get beyond? Sorry, Kelly.
I think women are held to a different standard for whatever reason. We just are. I mean, we just interviewed wonderful Lily King. I don't know if you followed the swimming Olympics. You were probably on your bike on the top of a mountain, but Lily waved her finger at the camera because of a rivalry she has with a Russian breaststroker, and a lot of people
waved her finger like this.
Yeah,
and was a response to what somebody else had done, right?
Yeah.
Number one, the Russian had done that. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if a guy was as confident as Lily was and talked as openly and authentically as Lily does
about being
competitive, they are met with, oh, that guy's a stud, but when Lily does it, there are some in our community, there's some haters of Lily because she's so great and so open. So I just think that there are always different standards for different sports and different genders and different races and different, there just are. So what did you learn from that?
I mean, well, it's also went back to during the race, I actually took myself out of the race. I technically scratched, but I just continued to ride the route. And that goes back to well, why do you do in the first place? Because then I realized well, if I continue, then I'm just feeding into this weird culture that I don't actually believe in. But what I really want to do is ride my bike, push my limits. And then it's who cares what place I am in the race if the race is somehow weird now. And then now it's moving forward, I'm actually going to work in the next year with more some of my brands are taking on more of the video projects, so that my girlfriend doesn't have to deal with that, because that was so hard for her too. It's she's being she's a professional, and then it's her relationship to me is somehow the biggest part of it, instead of what the story's going to be, and sharing the story, and for her to be able to be out there doing what she loves, which is shooting. And so she doesn't have to do that. And I think that's a weight off her shoulders. Some of the brands can tell us stories, and that'll be fun just to see what they come up with. And then on the third thing is just realizing that I actually don't really care what these people are saying. And then also if they want to put an asterisk by my name and say, oh, her race doesn't count because there was a video about it, I'm okay, well, whatever.
Crazy.
I don't care about that, and then somebody could read that and be well, that doesn't mean anything. It's the only people that care about this are the ones shouting at each other in the same forum. Nobody else even hears them. And by me even acknowledging them, that's raising them up into getting attention. And I think that's kind of, and then some people they just don't want to encourage other people into the sport. And that's for me, it's I want everybody that is interested or curious to try it out and do it, compete or just tour, do whatever they want with it, but feel like they're included. And then, the opposite is that people are well, this is changing, this kind of grouchy attitude of not wanting new people to be included. So, I don't really care about what they have to say anymore. And basically I don't feel the need to respond anymore. I'm okay, we're never going to agree about this. And then I also think well, maybe they should just do something. They should probably go for a bike ride.
Yeah, that's great.
So true. So what is one thing that most people don't know about you that you wish they did?
I don't know. What's one thing about you wish people knew?
I think I would say that my feelings get hurt even, out there. I think sometimes people think that because you're a public figure, they can say hateful things about you. I mean, I think people
That's
need
a good
to know.
point. I am super sensitive.
Okay.
I see this stuff and I'm like, why does somebody have a problem with me? And I'm like, I didn't say a critical thing to them, but that's just, you can't hold other people to the same standard as you hold yourself,
Yeah.
I mean, you should try the hardest to be the best person, but then also accept that, other people are kind of in their own thing. Maybe they don't even realize maybe they don't realize that I even notice.
Yeah.
But I guess that is something. It's like more people know you than you know them, and then you're exposed. I think that's something I really struggled with at first too. It's like my first video project was for REI, and I actually had to quit riding the Arizona Trail, and it was devastating. I had like breathing problems and like my body just totally shut down, and I had to quit. This video is being published, and then for the next year, people are like, how's your health? Like people I don't even know. And I'm like, oh God, like that's so hard to deal with. But that's actually that video is the whole reason I raced the Trans Am, because I was like so frustrated that I had to quit. I was like, wow. At the end of the video, this crew kept making me do all these interviews, and they had all these questions that were like, how do you feel about failure? What does your failure mean to you? And I was like, failure? Like, that's just, it's hard to even like acknowledge that. I was like, well, this isn't a failure. I'm going to race the Trans Am next year and I'm going to win it. And then I had to do it. And I was like, oh God, what did I get myself into?
Yeah. So Lael, what is next for you? This will be my last question because we want to respect your time here. What is next for you? So it's kind of a double question. One, what's really a big thing next for you? And would you ever do RAM?
No, I would never do RAM.
Okay.
But then I say that and I'm like, well, if somebody said, would you do it? I'll pay for all the stuff. I'd be like, yeah, maybe I'd do it. What the heck? Because I'm always curious, like what's actually possible. And then next for me, I'm doing a race around Rwanda in January. It's 1,000K, half dirt, half pavement. So that should be really cool. And then releasing this Alaska Roads video by the end of the year. And then I'm also going to launch a scholarship with it, which is something I did in 2018 as well, where I provide all the equipment for a woman to do their own Alaskan adventure. They have to ride, they have to set their own, like make their own route for 1,000 miles and then say, who they are, when they're going to do it, what they need to do it. And then they receive a bike and bike packing gear and a tent and a travel stipend to go make it happen. The last time I did it, it was 180 applicants ranging from 14 years old to 76 from all around the world. So then they write me like, I'm, this person, and I have 3 kids, and, I live in this country, and this is where I want to ride. And I've ridden all of it, so I know where they want to go, but they haven't. And they're like dreaming of it. So that's the next thing. And so cool. So that'll come out early January.
Wonderful. Maria, you want to ask the very last?
I just said a sort of aside. Rwanda is a race. The Rwanda 1,000. What's it called?
Race around Rwanda.
Race around Rwanda. And how much climbing is in that?
Tons.
Lots of little squiggly, zigzaggy roads. Okay. Well, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to say?
I don't think so. Great talking with you too. And
But wait, we have a fun speed round for you.
Oh, I didn't even put that in.
It's on there. It's on there, Maria.
You put it on there.
We have to. Lael's fans are going to want to know this stuff about her. So this is we call this the sprinter round, Lael. So just give us like a 1-word answer.
Okay.
You want to run this one, Kelly? Go ahead.
No, you if you've got your script up there.
Why don't we alternate? You do the first and I'll do the second.
Yeah, like we usually do.
Okay.
All right. Cat or dog?
Dog.
Red or blue?
Blue.
Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Milk chocolate.
Off-road or pavement?
Off-road.
We already know.
Mountains or beach?
Mountains.
Football or baseball?
Neither.
Okay, love it.
Cycling.
Good answer. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning.
Okay, cool. Maria, you got a few of these?
Favorite color?
Gold.
Oh,
That's a new one. I don't think we've ever had gold.
No, we haven't. Usually people say their college color. So favorite pizza topping?
Cheese.
I know your favorite food. It's ice cream. And
definitely.
Your favorite vegetable?
Ooh, tomatoes.
Okay. And then if you just had to pick one, maybe like 100K or 100-mile route that you ride, what would that be?
Yeah, the Denali Park Road,
Okay.
Denali National Park.
Yeah, I've heard that's beautiful. I want to
Close
do
to
it.
vehicle traffic and mostly gravel, but high quality gravel.
Mhm.
Super wild, super beautiful. Probably the most beautiful road in the world.
Oh, nice. So I know you listen to stuff, but I think you listen to books. What's one of the most recent books that you've listened to while you ride?
Ooh, oh man, I've been listening to this Cormoran Strike series. It's J.K. Rowling that wrote Harry Potter. She has a pseudonym, and they're like crime mystery novels. So good.
Wow.
Nice. What's your shoe size?
Size 40.
Okay, what is that? What is that?
It's like women's 8.5.
Yeah, 8.5 or 9.
I know you have a sister. Do you have any other siblings?
2 sisters and a brother.
Oh, wonderful. Favorite Star Wars character?
Ooh, Yoda.
Yay.
Yeah.
Love Yoda.
Can you cook?
Yeah. I can.
Okay. And what word comes to mind when you just get off the starting line of a huge new adventure?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm like just going through the roof. Yeah, I'm just so excited to be there. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be out here forever. Because they do really feel like endless. Like you're like, especially something that takes like 2 weeks, you're not even like to the final stretch for like 10 days.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
What's the hardest in a long, say, maybe a 12 or 15-day event? What's the hardest time in there? Like what day would you say usually?
Day 2 is tough. Yeah. The
That
honeymoon's
makes sense.
over. And then you have like so much more to
first day
go.
is great.
And you like felt so good on day 1, and then you just feel so bad on day 2.
That's great.
That's true.
Well,
Well,
Lael,
I want
it's-
to, it's been wonderful, but I want to tell you that I haven't done much bike packing, but my husband and I, after watching your videos, we're planning our first bike packing trip up in New England. So,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, I'm really excited about it. So thanks so much for your inspiration to cyclists and women and people everywhere.
Yes. So it's been wonderful. And we'll put the information for your charity and all the ways for our listeners to reach you in the show notes. So we're just so grateful. Thank you. Best of
Thanks
luck
so
in
much for your time.
everything.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
It's now time for the takeaways. Maria, you and I have heard the takeaways are the best part of the show.
That's right, Kelly, because the takeaways are curated information, which is what we give to our clients when we coach them.
If you would like to take your performance to the next level in health, life, or leadership, go to our website and schedule your free 30-minute consultation.
Yes, just click on our coaching page and book there. We're looking forward to bringing out the champion in you.
And now, the takeaways.
Wow, Maria, what an amazing athlete, human. I'm blown away. How about you?
Oh yeah, I've I've been wanting to talk to her for a long time, and she was just as well, even more wonderful than I've watched all her videos. I felt like she was a friend before we ever talked to her today. So yeah, so
and
much
I love
to learn.
that. Yeah, we should share that. Like your husband, who does not get on to usually say hi to guests before, but he said he fanboyed out and wanted to say hi to Lael. So I think that's just so
Says a
adorable.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your first takeaway?
Well, what Lael made me want to do was be outside. And, I am outside a lot, but I loved her just love for bike packing and, going overnight and camping out and being outside and being in nature and appreciating nature and appreciating the people. And so just going on adventures, she made me want to go on a bike packing adventure. And as I said, I do a lot of cycling, but I haven't been that keen on, bike packing adventures, but man, am I motivated to now. And I think it's because she did a great job of just talking about how wonderful it is to be in nature. So that's my takeaway. So let's get out there and be in nature. And if you can't go on a bike packing adventure, go outside. I think we've talked about this before, and sit someplace beautiful, hug a tree, watch the flowers, take a walk. It's so important to be in nature for our mental health.
Yes, yes. And Maria, you're in the cycling community. So bike packing is a term that you were familiar with. And I was not really familiar with the term bike packing, but I think that's really a cool, like, visual, just thinking about
Right.
throwing your sleeping bag on the back and you're rolling. So
Yeah,
I learned. So I think that's a great takeaway. And certainly we talk about dealing with anxiety and depression and mental health and just anything. And we've talked about forest bathing, and this is so important for anything that we really want to kind of just calm down and you said get outside, and my first takeaway is going to be about her suffering and her dealing with pain and deprivation, and that ties into yours, which is nature. It's really like one of the ways she deals with it is, hey, she's really suffering,
Mhm.
but hey, look at that eagle, or wow,
Yeah.
look at that sunset. So
Yeah.
it's just, there's just proven research. It shows when you connect to nature, you just reduce all the negative things. And I think another huge thing that I loved about her, her talking about her suffering and her deprivation was that she said that she made herself comfortable, which was just
she did everything she could. Yeah.
she did everything she could to be comfortable. And I think sometimes we want to just, be stoic and like, okay, well, I'm freezing. But she brought flip-flops when she knew she was going to go through a stream because she didn't want to be slogging around in freezing cold, wet shoes for the rest of the day. And, I'm really
down pants. I'm all about down pants.
yeah. And she, and down pants. She said her down pants were like the thing that she said. So I really, I equate this to, I've coached a lot of people going through topical steroid withdrawal, which is one of the most physically painful things. If you can imagine your largest organ just, burning, stinging, itching, molting, just feeling horrible. And the number one piece of advice I give to people suffering is do everything you can to make yourself comfortable. Just be on cotton sheets, have a cool compresses. Don't force yourself to go to work, do the things that you can do to make yourself comfortable. So I love that was something that she actually said, because you kind of think of her as being so tough that she would just, I just soldier through, I just put my head down and do it. But yeah, she said, I wear down pants. So I really liked that as far as her dealing with suffering.
Yeah.
How about your second one?
Well, I love the dichotomy between her self-sufficiency, because she does these self-sufficient races. I mean, that's the whole, I did Race Across America. I was totally supported by lots of people. Trans Am is just the opposite. You have to do everything yourself. You got to bring your own stuff. You can buy stuff from stores, but you can't get help from a crew or anything. So I love, and that's what she does mostly, is these self-sufficient races. And so I love the concept of the dichotomy between this desire and enjoyment of self-sufficiency when she's out on the bike. But then she also said when she's working on her charity or trying to do other things, she really needs other people, so that's hard for her, but she realizes that we need both. We need to feel self-sufficient, but we also need to be able to reach out and get help from people. So I thought that was a great takeaway.
Yes, that one definitely spoke to me as well. And then, how we curate this information, which is fun for us is we say, if we get off the interview and we go tell our husbands or our friends, oh, how was the interview? We say, oh my gosh, I learned this or I learned
three
that.
things.
So,
these three things. Yeah.
These are the things that I'm going to do. So for me, when she talked about kind of managing fear, I mean, I set her up for the questions about, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And did she worry about mountain lions or stalkers or, being struck by lightning or, all these things that are really, truly not, it's not about the endurance or the deprivation, but this is just things that are in the environment, risks in the environment. And she said, statistically, those things are just not going to happen. And, that's kind of one of the things that you coach me on too, that I can be a worrier coming from the Parker family. We Parkers, we're always ready to blow the whistle on something that could never happen or rarely happen.
Unlikely.
So I loved very unlikely. So she just kind of said, no, I don't think about those things.
Yeah.
And statistically, it's not going to happen. So I think that's something that I can really take away, and any warriors out there like me can probably use that and just say, statistically, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah, I think this is a great lesson in this time with so many things to worry about, including getting ill from COVID. How can I reduce my risk? But then what is the actual risk, and let's be, because our amygdala says fear, we run away, even if it's very, very unlikely. So I love that as a takeaway too. I think so many of us can benefit from looking at the probability. What is the probability that something bad will happen? And then if we can get our rational brain to look at that, then I think we can shortcut some of the fear around it.
Yes. And COVID is a great example because okay, let's say you do come down with COVID, 98% chance you're going to just, it's and most age groups under, I think 60, 99.8% chance that you're going to be fine. Yeah. So awesome interview. What a joy. And she's
really a delight. I'm going to be following her, and she's wonderful.
Yeah. Love you, Maria.
Love you, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast with host Kelly Palace and Maria Parker. Champions Mojo is produced by Cabra Media, and a new episode debuts every Tuesday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Follow Champions Mojo on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook @Champions Mojo.